mynews.studio.
A $14.5 trillion windfall from immigrants is challenging some long-standing assumptions. Could the U.S. debt picture look completely different without immigration?
That's an enormous figure. Today is February 25th, 2026. So there's this new study from the Cato Institute saying immigrants have generated a net $14.5 trillion surplus for U.S. taxpayers over the past 30 years. How did they actually calculate that? Was it just federal taxes, or did the researchers look at other factors too?
They looked much deeper than just federal taxes. The researchers based their analysis on an updated version of the National Academies model, using 30 years of census data from 1994 through 2023. They assigned all taxes, federal, state, and local, by age, education level, and citizenship status. Same approach for government spending. To improve accuracy, they averaged data over 3 years. And they didn't just count direct taxes and benefits. They also factored in non-tax revenue and even calculated interest savings from reduced public debt.
Hang on, interest savings. So if immigrants hadn't paid so much in taxes, the government would have needed to borrow more, and that would have led to higher interest payments.
Exactly. Their tax contributions helped keep the public debt from going over 205% of GDP. The study focused strictly on direct fiscal flows, money in versus money out, so it didn't even consider broader economic effects like GDP growth.
So, pretty narrow in scope, but that makes their findings tough to dispute. Did they break down how much immigrants receive in benefits compared to what they pay in? There's always debate about welfare use.
Here's what the data showed. Immigrants have consistently paid more into the system than they've drawn out. Since 1994, they've been responsible for 14% of government revenues, but only used 7% of public spending. Non-citizens used 53% less welfare than native-born Americans. Even immigrants with lower skill levels ended up making a net positive contribution.
That goes against the usual narrative. Is this just an American phenomenon, or do we see similar patterns in other countries?
The pattern holds in other major economies. Take Canada, for example. Immigrants there generate a net fiscal surplus between 40 and 60 billion Canadian dollars each year. Because of their points-based system, most newcomers are high-skilled, so their lifetime contributions outpace costs by 20 to 30%.
Germany had that big wave of refugees in 2015. Did that change their numbers?
At first, there were higher welfare costs, but over time, skilled migrants became net contributors. The total fiscal impact added up to around 500 billion euros over several decades. Speed of integration makes a difference. Delays can slow down those fiscal benefits.
And in the UK?
The UK's Office for Budget Responsibility reports that immigrants, especially from the European Economic Area, generate a £4.6 billion surplus each year. Migrants from outside the EEA typically break even after about 6 years, and they also help fill labor shortages in areas like healthcare.
With all this data, why does the belief persist that immigrants are a drain on public finances?
It sticks around because people notice visible spending, but not always the taxes paid. The study shows that immigrants' tax payments have actually helped stabilize public finances. Myths tend to focus on welfare use, but the underlying data points in a different direction.
If the evidence is this clear, what should governments actually do with it? Is it just a matter of inviting more high-skilled immigrants?
Skills-based visa policies like Canada's can boost fiscal benefits more quickly, but the study also found that even less skilled immigrants end up as net contributors. Making naturalization easier could speed up integration and reduce dependence on benefits, as Germany has learned. And if governments combine enforcement with legal work pathways, more untaxed labor could move into the official economy, raising revenue without adding to the debt.
So, the evidence suggests immigration actually helps stabilize government finances rather than posing a risk.
Right. And especially with aging populations and labor shortages, these findings really make the case for data-driven policies rather than restrictive ones.
That's a pretty significant shift. Immigrants aren't just filling jobs, they're affecting the entire fiscal equation.
And the numbers are clear.
To recap, immigrants have added $14.5 trillion to U.S. public finances, challenged persistent myths worldwide, and shown up as net contributors in Canada, Germany, and the UK. Policy choices matter, but the data is straightforward.
Thanks for joining us as we broke down the numbers behind the headlines.
Thank you for listening. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. You can try it now for free.